There comes a moment in every generation when the ordinary routines of daily life pause abruptly, and the fragility of modern civilization becomes undeniable for those of us who have spent decades studying the interplay between economic systems, resource allocation, and human resilience. This moment is not surprising but inevitable. The power grid fails, grocery store shelves empty within 72 hours, and families who never imagined themselves vulnerable suddenly confront the ancient question that has haunted humanity since the dawn of agriculture. What will we eat when the systems we depend upon collapse? This is not fear-mongering or apocalyptic fantasy, but an observable historical pattern, a cycle that has repeated itself across centuries and continents, from the fall of Rome to the Great Depression, from wartime rationing to the supply chain disruptions that Americans experienced during recent crises. The truth is that our modern infrastructure, despite its technological sophistication, remains astonishingly vulnerable to disruption, and understanding this vulnerability is the first step toward genuine preparedness. Before we proceed further into this examination of food security and survival strategies, I want to ask you to stay with me through this entire presentation because the knowledge we'll explore together has the potential to fundamentally change how you think about protecting your family and honoring the wisdom of generations past. The electrical grid that powers American homes, businesses, and critical infrastructure represents one of the most complex machines ever constructed by human hands, yet it also stands as one of the most precarious. In August 2003, approximately 50 million people across the northeastern United States and parts of Canada lost power in what became the largest blackout in North American history, an event that traced its origins not to a sophisticated cyber-attack or natural catastrophe but to a single downed power line in suburban Ohio that went unnoticed because alarm systems at FirstEnergy Corporation had failed. The cascading failure that followed demonstrated how interdependent our electrical systems have become and how quickly localized problems can propagate across entire regions. Investigators later determined that the blackout resulted from a combination of inadequate tree trimming, outdated computer systems, and insufficient oversight. This pattern of deferred maintenance and systemic vulnerability continues today, with warnings that blackouts could increase dramatically if the United States continues to retire reliable power sources without adequately replacing them. The historical record provides countless examples of how quickly modern societies can descend from abundance to scarcity when distribution systems fail. During the Great Depression of the 1930s, American families who had grown accustomed to purchasing food from stores suddenly found themselves learning or relearning the traditional skills of food preservation that their grandparents had practiced as routine necessity. The United States Department of Agriculture established community canning centers across rural areas, providing equipment and instruction to families struggling with economic hardship. These centers, staffed by home demonstrators like Florence Hall and Grace Frissinger, taught women how to preserve food using water baths and pressure cookers, techniques that allowed families to store vegetables, fruits, and even meats for extended periods without refrigeration. This knowledge became even more critical during World War II, when rationing transformed food preservation from economic necessity to patriotic duty. In 1943, 75% of American homemakers preserved more than 4 billion containers of food, averaging 165 jars per household. Women often applied for extra sugar rations specifically for canning purposes, though these allocations depended on availability and were never guaranteed. The government encouraged drying as an alternative preservation method because it required no rationed materials, and citizens constructed drying cabinets and racks to dehydrate foods like corn, which retained good flavor but proved difficult to can safely. What these historical examples reveal is not merely the ingenuity of past generations but the fundamental principle that food security depends ultimately on storage capacity and preservation knowledge rather than on uninterrupted access to retail distribution networks. Electrical grid vulnerabilities have plagued the United States for decades. The massive Northeast blackout of 1965 caused by a malfunctioning protective relay, the 1977 New York City blackout accompanied by widespread looting and arson, and the West Coast blackout of 1982 that left millions without power across multiple states and regions. Beyond these events, physical attacks on infrastructure have occurred with unsettling regularity. In 1975, the New World Liberation Front bombed a Pacific Gas and Electric substation twice, while the George Jackson Brigade bombed a Seattle substation the same year. Though isolated, these incidents underline the susceptibility of electrical systems to intentional disruption, an issue that has only intensified in an era of advanced cyber capabilities and geopolitical tension. The economic dimensions of food security extend beyond crisis scenarios to include the long-term erosion of purchasing power through inflation and currency devaluation. Societies experiencing currency instability invariably witness corresponding increases in food insecurity as money loses its capacity to command real goods and services. Even in a nation issuing the world's reserve currency, mounting fiscal pressures can eventually manifest as significant inflation under the right circumstances. Families who maintain reserves of shelf-stable food effectively hedge against this risk by converting current purchasing power into stored nutritional value that cannot be eroded by monetary depreciation. This strategy mirrors the ancient practice of storing grain during years of abundance to provide sustenance during years of scarcity, a practice documented from ancient Egypt to imperial China. The question facing contemporary Americans is not whether disruption will occur but when, and whether families will have taken reasonable precautions beforehand. Understanding which foods provide optimal long-term storage value requires examination of nutritional science and practical experience accumulated over generations. Drawing on a long-standing tradition emphasizing self-reliance, extensive research has shown that properly packaged low-moisture foods stored at room temperature or cooler can remain nutritious far longer than previously believed. Wheat, white rice, corn, rolled oats, pasta, potato flakes, dried apple slices, and pinto beans can all last 30 years or more when stored under proper conditions that minimize oxygen and moisture. Even when taste and some nutritional quality gradually decline, these foods retain their ability to sustain life during emergencies. Non-fat powdered milk and dehydrated carrots demonstrate slightly shorter but still significant shelf lives of around 20 years when stored correctly. These findings reshape our understanding of what constitutes practical emergency preparedness, revealing that families can create long-term food reserves capable of supporting them for years, not merely weeks or months. The cultural significance of food preservation in American history extends beyond survival to embody values of independence, stewardship, and community resilience. European settlers arrived in North America with centuries of accumulated knowledge about storing grains, salting meats, and preserving vegetables, knowledge indispensable for survival in harsh and unpredictable environments. Root cellars, smokehouses, and springhouses served not merely as structures but as lifelines for families through long winters and uncertain harvests. As Americans pushed westward into frontier territories, this wisdom became even more vital. Homesteaders understood intuitively that real security came from local production and storage under direct control, not reliance on distant commercial supply chains. This ethos endured in rural America well into the 20th century, even as urbanization transformed the majority of Americans into consumers rather than producers. Medical traditions that developed alongside food preservation highlight additional dimensions of preparedness extending beyond caloric intake to health, maintenance, and disease prevention. Before the rise of modern pharmaceuticals, families relied on stored foods for both nutrition and medical purposes. Honey served as a wound dressing and anti-infective, salt as both preservative and therapeutic mineral, and dried herbs as the basis for medicinal teas addressing common ailments. Salted broths, mineral-rich foods, and herbal infusions formed a medical toolkit rooted in common household stores. This holistic approach, combining nutrition, storage, and basic medical knowledge, sustained families through periods of isolation and hardship long before modern medicine was widely accessible. The psychology of preparedness deserves careful attention because the decision to establish long-term food reserves often encounters resistance rooted in normalcy bias. Most Americans, having lived their entire lives in an era of abundance, struggle to imagine a future where grocery stores may stand empty or inaccessible. This normalcy bias creates cognitive dissonance when confronted with evidence of vulnerability, causing many to dismiss risks and defer action. Overcoming this mindset requires education and honest evaluation of documented historical patterns. Americans who lived through the Great Depression understood firsthand how quickly abundance can vanish, leading them to adopt lifelong habits of storage, frugality, and self-reliance. Later generations, raised in sustained prosperity, gradually abandoned these practices, replacing them with just-in-time consumption models that leave little margin for error. The evidence before us is clear. Modern American society, despite its wealth and technology, remains deeply vulnerable to the same forces that have tested civilizations throughout history: economic instability, natural disaster, infrastructure failure, and human conflict. The electrical grid operates with minimal redundancy, the supply chain that feeds the nation maintains razor-thin inventories, and the economic system underpinning daily life carries mounting structural risks. These vulnerabilities are not theoretical but present, documented, and growing. The question every family must face is whether to acknowledge these realities and prepare accordingly, or to rely on hope and habit until circumstances remove the choice entirely. The transition from theoretical understanding of preparedness to practical implementation requires identifying specific foods that combine maximum longevity with nutritional completeness and versatility, a challenge that has occupied survival researchers, nutritional scientists, and preparedness communities for generations. The 14 foods we will examine represent the distilled wisdom of human experience with food storage, validated by both archaeological evidence spanning millennia and contemporary scientific research conducted at institutions such as Brigham Young University. These are not arbitrary selections based on marketing trends or popular opinion, but rigorously vetted staples that have sustained civilizations. through genuine crises and demonstrated their reliability under controlled laboratory conditions. Understanding why these particular foods achieve exceptional longevity requires examining the biochemical properties that resist spoilage, the storage methodologies that preserve nutritional value, and the historical contexts in which these foods proved their worth when modern alternatives failed or never existed. Honey stands as perhaps the most extraordinary food in human history, possessing a shelf life that extends not merely for years or decades but for millennia without any meaningful degradation. Archaeologists excavating ancient Egyptian tombs, including the famous tomb of King Tutankhamun, have repeatedly found sealed jars of honey that remain perfectly edible after more than 3,000 years. The oldest known honey discovered to date, found in the region of modern-day Georgia, dates to approximately 5,500 years ago and remained remarkably well preserved. This extraordinary longevity stems from honey's unique biochemical properties, its extremely low moisture content, its naturally acidic pH, and its internal production of hydrogen peroxide through the enzyme glucose oxidase. These conditions create an environment fundamentally hostile to bacterial growth and fungal contamination, effectively rendering honey self-sterilizing and self-preserving. Ancient civilizations understood these properties intuitively, incorporating honey into ritual, medicine, and daily life. For contemporary Americans establishing survival food reserves, honey provides not only indefinite caloric storage and natural sweetness, but also therapeutic applications, including wound treatment, cough suppression, and quick energy restoration during physical exertion or illness. White rice, consumed as a staple food by more than half the global population, demonstrates shelf-life characteristics that make it indispensable for long-term food storage. Research conducted at Brigham Young University examined polished white rice and parboiled rice stored for periods of 1 to 30 years and determined that both retain nutrients and flavor throughout these extended durations when packaged properly. When sealed in oxygen-free containers with food-grade oxygen absorbers and stored at cooler temperatures, white rice can remain viable for 25 to 30 years. Even at typical room temperatures, rice maintains high quality for at least a decade. The key distinction between white rice and brown rice is crucial. Although brown rice is more nutritious in fresh form, its natural oils cause it to turn rancid within 6 to 12 months. White rice, with the oil-rich bran removed, avoids this issue entirely and therefore provides the longevity required for true survival planning. Storage guidelines recommend approximately 25 to 60 pounds of rice per person as part of a one-year food supply. Its high caloric density, versatility in cooking, and neutral flavor make rice foundational to nearly every comprehensive survival food plan. Wheat stored as whole wheat berries, rather than processed flour, represents another cornerstone of long-term food security. Wheat berries can remain nutritious for 30 years or more when sealed in oxygen-free containers and stored in cool conditions. The protective bran layer surrounding each wheat kernel shields the nutrient-rich interior from oxidation and spoilage, allowing wheat to outlast virtually every other grain when stored properly. This longevity comes with the requirement for a grain mill, enabling families to grind wheat into flour when needed. The historical precedent for wheat storage is as old as civilization itself. Grain storage underpinned the earliest agricultural societies of Mesopotamia and Egypt, enabling them to survive years of drought and famine. The biblical story of Joseph advising Pharaoh to store grain during years of abundance is one of the earliest recorded accounts of structured food storage. American pioneers understood the necessity of wheat as well, carrying it across the plains to ensure access to bread, the primary caloric foundation for frontier families. Dried beans and lentils, collectively known as pulses, provide plant-based protein that perfectly complements grain storage by forming complete amino acid profiles when consumed together. Pinto beans, black beans, navy beans, kidney beans, and multiple varieties of lentils all achieve shelf lives of 30 years or more when stored with oxygen absorbers in sealed containers. Beans typically contain 20–25% protein by dry weight, making them essential in scenarios when animal protein is unavailable or too costly. Additionally, beans offer significant dietary fiber, complex carbohydrates for sustained energy, and essential minerals such as iron, magnesium, and potassium. Preparation requires soaking to reduce cooking time and improve digestibility, and storing baking soda alongside dried beans can further aid this process. For generations, American farm families understood the necessity of preserving large quantities of beans during harvest season, ensuring dietary stability through winter and potential crop failures. If this information is proving valuable to you and helping you understand the critical importance of food security for your family's future, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and activate the notification bell so you never miss essential preparedness content. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from, what city and country, because I want to know how far this message of resilience and self-reliance is reaching across our nation and around the world. Canned goods, though a relatively modern preservation technology dating to the early 19th century have proven their worth through war, depression, and natural disaster. Commercially canned foods generally last 5 to 10 years, though under ideal cool and stable conditions they can remain safe and palatable for 20 years or more. Canned fish, such as tuna, salmon, and sardines, provide complete protein and omega-3 fatty acids without requiring refrigeration until opened. Canned vegetables, including green beans, corn, tomatoes, and mixed varieties, preserve nutritional value effectively, though some vitamins gradually decline over time. Canned fruits provide vitamin C and contribute essential dietary variety, helping prevent food fatigue during prolonged reliance on stored foods. During World War II, when rationing restricted access to fresh produce, home canning became a national movement. An estimated 75% of American households preserved an average of 165 jars of food in 1943 alone. This effort not only ensured family survival but built a culture of self-reliance that remains instructive today. Salt represents one of the most essential and irreplaceable components of any long-term food supply. Human survival requires sodium chloride for cellular function, nerve transmission, and electrolyte balance, yet the body cannot synthesize it. Salt's significance extends beyond nutrition. It has served as a primary preservation method for thousands of years. Meat, fish, and vegetables cured or fermented with salt could be stored throughout seasons when fresh food was unavailable. Salt is chemically stable and never spoils when kept dried. Historically, salt was so essential that entire trade routes developed around it. Political revolts were sparked over its taxation, and the word salary itself originates from the Latin term for salt rations. Modern abundance masks salt's true survival value, but in crisis, salt becomes indispensable for preservation, nutrition, and even barter. Sugar serves multiple purposes in food storage beyond sweetening. It enables the preservation of fruits through jams and jellies, provides rapid energy during emergencies, and stores indefinitely when kept dry. During World War II, sugar rationing dramatically affected families because sugar was essential for home canning, a primary method of preserving fruit harvests. Sugar offers approximately 4 calories per gram, providing quick energy during physically demanding situations where calorie expenditure increases dramatically. Its role in morale should not be underestimated. A small amount of sweetness can provide psychological comfort and support mental resilience during extended hardship. Rolled oats demonstrate exceptional longevity, often up to 30 years when stored with oxygen absorbers. They provide whole grain nutrition, soluble fiber for cardiovascular and digestive health, and culinary versatility. Oats have deep historical roots in American food culture through Scottish and Irish immigrant traditions. Oatmeal provided inexpensive, filling energy for farm families and laborers for generations. Its beta-glucan fiber offers health benefits that remain vital even in survival settings, when stress and limited diet variety constrain the body. Pasta made from refined wheat flour also lasts up to 30 years when stored properly. It is calorie-dense, lightweight, familiar, easy to prepare, and provides psychological comfort through its association with normal household meals. Italian immigration heavily influenced American eating habits, making pasta a staple far beyond its original cultural roots. Potato flakes, another long storage staple, provide vitamin C, potassium, and comforting familiarity. They also rehydrate quickly and serve as foundation for numerous recipes.